Welcome to the video. Don't forget to subscribe. Happy listening. If you want to turn on subtitles, use YouTube's own subtitles.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We are doing something a little different today, and I'm actually really looking forward to it.
Too.
Because it touches on something we all use and probably misuse every single day, language. Specifically, we are opening up your vocabulary toolkit.
And doing a serious audit.
Exactly.
And it's a fascinating topic because, most people listening to this are already articulate. You know what words mean.
Right.
If I say accumulate, it means to gather or pile up. But there's a huge canyon between knowing a definition and having mastery.
Right. It's the difference between sounding like you just swallowed a thesaurus and sounding like a fluent, persuasive person.
That's it. So we have a stack of sources today on 30 advanced English verbs. But the goal here isn't to just, read a dictionary.
Definitely not.
Because if you just memorize definitions, you miss the most important part. You miss the environment.
The environment. I like that phrasing. It sounds almost biological.
In a way, it is. Words are like living things. They have habitats, they have neighbors they like to hang out with. Linguists call them collocations.
Okay.
And they have tones. Some are positive, some are negative. If you put a polar bear in the desert, it just doesn't work. It's the same with words.
You sound like an alien trying to blend in.
Exactly. So today is about understanding where these 30 words live so you can use them with absolute precision.
Okay, so we've broken this down into three main territories. First, the internal world emotions, mental states. Then we'll move to the physical world action and change. And finally, strategy and formality, the boardroom words.
And to wrap it all up, we have a case study, a little narrative called The Architect of Change, that actually weaves all 30 of these words into one story.
A stress test.
The ultimate stress test, to see if we can spot these environments in the wild.
All right, let's do it. Let's start with that internal world, emotional and mental dynamics. And the first two words really play with the elements, fire and water.
They do. Let's start with kindle. Now, physically, this means to start a fire, right? You kindle a campfire.
Sure.
But in advanced English, if you're talking about a literal fire, it sounds a bit archaic.
But I shouldn't say, I need to kindle my stove.
I mean, you could, but you sound like you're from the 1800s.
Yeah.
The environment where Kindle thrives today is abstract. You kindle emotions.
Interest, hope.
Exactly. You kindle interest.
Yeah.
You kindle hope. It implies a process, not just flipping a switch. Start is mechanical. Kindle is organic. It's a spark that needs care to grow.
Like rekindling a relationship.
The classic example. There was a fire, it died down, and now you're gently bringing it back. It's a warm, positive word.
Okay, so if we have fire, we need water. Quench.
Quench is so interesting because its habitat is incredibly restricted. In modern English, you can really only quench two things.
Thirst and fire.
That's it, thirst or fire.
What about hunger? I feel like I hear people say, quench my appetite.
That's a super common mistake. You satisfy hunger, you set an appetite.
Yeah.
But you quench thirst. It is inherently about liquid.
So this water is the only thing that can quench my thirst.
Perfect. Now, there is one small metaphorical exception. The sources do mention you can quench your curiosity.
Oh, like you're putting out the fire of curiosity.
Yes. But even that is pretty literary. 99% of the time, just stick to thirst and flames.
Got it. Okay, moving from elements to power dynamics. We've got leverage and manipulate.
And this is a crucial distinction. Leverage comes from physics. It's using a lever to lift something heavy.
Applying force strategically.
Precisely. In business, it means using a resource or a connection to its maximum potential.
So she plans to leverage her fluency in Spanish to get a job in Madrid.
Perfect. It's smart, it's positive, she has a tool, her Spanish, and she's using it. Compare that to manipulate.
Which just feels ugly.
Well, physically, it can be neutral. You manipulate data in a spreadsheet.
Oh, clay.
Or clay, right. But the second you apply it to people,
What's a red flag?
it's a huge red flag. It implies you're controlling them unfairly, usually for your own advantage. It's all about the negative intent.
One gets you a promotion, the other gets you fired. Speaking of which,
Justify.
justify is a defensive word. It's about proving an action is reasonable. But the grammar around it is what's really interesting.
The notes mention it loves reflexive pronouns.
It does. I don't have to justify myself to you. Or it lives in the passive voice. The cost is justified by the results.
And it always seems to show up around money. I can't justify spending $500 on a pair of sneakers.
Exactly. You're saying you can't provide a valid reason that outweighs the cost. It's all about that balance of validity.
Okay, let's shift to perception. The word here is fittingly perceive.
And perceive is a step deeper than see. Seeing is with your eyes, perceiving is with your brain. It's interpretation.
So the formula is perceive X as Y.
That's the one to master. She perceives his silence as arrogance.
So he might not be arrogant. He could just be shy. Exactly. But that's her interpretation. It's subjective. In business, this is everything. It's not about what your brand is. It's about what the customer perceives it to be.
And sometimes closing those gaps in perception is tough.
Yeah.
Which brings us to reconcile. This one's a heavy hitter.
It is, because it has two very distinct contexts.
Okay, so context A is relationships.
Right. After years of silence, the brothers finally reconciled. They restored friendly relations. They made up.
That's the easy one. But then there's the intellectual one.
This is the tricky one. It means making two conflicting ideas exist together.
Give me an example.
Okay, your friend says they're a huge animal lover, but they also eat steak every night. You could say, I find it hard to reconcile her love for animals with her diet.
So you have fact A and fact B, and they just don't fit. You can't make the puzzle pieces lock.
That's it, exactly. Or reconciling a budget. You have the money you thought you spent and the money you actually spent. You have to make those two numbers agree.
Okay, one more for the internal world. Speculate. I immediately think of Wall Street.
And that's one of its main habitats. But at its core, speculate just means forming a theory without firm evidence.
So it's a fancy word for guessing.
It's a bit more cognitive than that.
Yeah.
Guessing is random. Speculating implies you're building a mental model based on some clues. We can only speculate on why the CEO resigned.
We don't know, but we're trying to connect the dots.
Right. And in finance, it means investing in high-risk stocks. You're theorizing the price will go up, but you don't know for sure. It's a bet.
High risk, high reward. Okay, let's step out of the mind and into the physical world. Action, interaction, and change.
Let's start with a word that I think is one of the highest value verbs in English because it means two completely opposite things. Yield.
Oh, this one trips people up all the time.
It should. So, meaning number one, to produce, to give forth. The investigation yielded new evidence.
Productive, positive.
Right. But meaning number two is the total opposite, to surrender, to give way. He refused to yield to their demands.
Yield to oncoming traffic.
There you go.
Yeah.
So in one context, you're making something happen. In the other, you're stopping to let something else happen.
So that preposition to seems to be the trigger, right? Yield to pressure.
That's a sharp observation. Yes. Yield to almost always signals the surrender meaning, whereas yield a noun usually means produce.
Okay, let's talk about movement. We have vanish and wander.
These are great for setting a scene. Vanish is sudden, it's complete, it's mysterious,
My keys vanished.
and the collocation everyone needs is into thin air. The magician vanished into thin air. It implies it shouldn't be possible.
Whereas wander is the complete opposite speed.
Totally. Wander is leisurely, it's aimless, you wander around a new city, you're not rushing.
And I love the mental application of this. My mind began to wander.
Oh yeah, we've all been in that meeting where your mind just gets up and walks away to think about lunch.
Totally. Now, what about growth? We have nurture, accumulate, and absorb.
Nurture is a beautiful word. It implies patience and care. You nurture a child, a plant, a talent.
He wants to nurture a good relationship with his clients.
Exactly. He's feeding it, protecting it. Now compare that to accumulate.
Accumulate just sounds colder.
It is. It's just about quantity, piling things up. He accumulated a vast fortune, or dust accumulates under the bed.
You wouldn't say, I want to accumulate friends.
No, that sounds like you're collecting them in a jar. It's creepy. You make friends. You accumulate data.
And absorb.
To take in. A sponge absorbs water. A student absorbs information. But there's a great business idiom here, absorbing costs.
Oh, right. That's when you decide to lose money on something to keep a customer happy.
Basically, if the price of coffee beans goes up, the cafe can either raise prices or they can absorb the cost. They take the financial hit.
All right, let's move to our third theme. Strategy, value, and restriction. This is where things get a bit more formal.
Yeah, let's look at the formality scale. First up, bestow.
Bestow feels like I need to be wearing a tuxedo and a monocle to say it.
You're not wrong.
Mm.
It's highly ceremonial. You do not bestow a sandwich on your friend.
I hereby bestow this ham and cheese upon you.
Exactly. You sound ridiculous.
Yeah.
You bestow honors. You bestow rights. You bestow titles. And notice that preposition, bestow upon.
Another formal one is heed.
Heed is a formal way to say pay attention to, but it carries the weight of a warning.
Like, heed the doctor's warning.
Right. Or heed the speed limit. If someone tells you to heed something, you should probably stop and listen. It's serious.
And in that same legalistic world, we have amend.
You amend a law, you amend the Constitution, you amend a formal statement. It's about correcting a text or a rule to make it more accurate.
You don't amend your grocery list.
You just cross things off. Exactly.
Okay, let's touch on a descriptive one. Glisten. This is pure imagery.
It is, and it's very specific. It means to sparkle, but only because something is wet or oily.
So sweat, dew, tears.
Sweat glistened on his forehead. The grass glistened with dew. It's not a dry sparkle like a diamond. It's a wet shine.
Got it. Okay, finally, let's look at opposition and restriction. Defy, inhibit, and exploit.
Defy is about open resistance. Protesters defied the curfew. But it's also used for things that seem impossible.
Like the building defies gravity.
Or the sunset defied description. It was so beautiful, words couldn't capture it. It resisted your words.
Then there's inhibit.
Inhibit means to hinder or restrain. Think of it like a brake.
So antibiotics inhibit the growth of bacteria.
That's the biological sense. But psychologically, shyness can inhibit you from making friends. It holds you back.
And exploit. We touched on this with manipulate, but exploit has that same dual nature.
It does, and this is where so many learners get into trouble. It can be positive or neutral. We need to exploit every opportunity.
That's just good business. Use your resources.
But the second you apply it to people, it becomes morally wrong. The company exploited its workers.
So, exploit things, good. Exploit people, bad.
That is the golden rule for that word.
Okay, so we've covered the list. We have the bricks. Let's build the house with this story. The architect of change.
Right. This is about an urban planner named Elias. And we're going to see how these words actually drive the narrative.
So set the scene for us.
Elias is in a tough spot. He wants to build a park, but the city is broke and the residents are cynical.
So he can't just ask for money.
No. First, he has to justify the proposal. He has to prove its value. And then he has to kindle enthusiasm in people who've given up hope.
He's just one person, so he needs some influence.
So he decides to leverage his connections at City Hall. Notice the choice there. He uses his network effectively. But he refuses to manipulate the data. He stays honest.
Which tells you a lot about his character. Now, what about the community?
Well, they felt oppressed by the concrete jungle. But the local business owners, they perceived the park as a threat.
They interpreted it as bad for business.
So Elias has a conflict. He needs to quench their fears, put out that fire of panic, and he has to reconcile these opposing views.
Which is the hardest part. You have investors who want to speculate on the land and elderly residents who can't tolerate noise. How do you bring them together?
He calls a town hall. He tells them they have to unite, or the soul of the neighborhood will vanish into thin air.
He raises the stakes. And he promises the park will yield benefits, produce results for everyone.
And the crowd listens. They try to absorb the details.
The story mentions that trash had accumulated on the land for years. They need to amend the old zoning laws, and they bring in an expert to appraise the land's value.
And here's the climax. The mayor sees the public support and decides to bestow her official approval. It's a formal public act.
But of course there are villains. Developers try to contradict the reports. They try to defy the new laws.
Why? Because they want to exploit the land in the negative sense. Use it selfishly for profit.
So Elias has to devise a new strategy. He has to get the police to enforce the protection orders.
And finally, the resolution. The park opens. The dew glistens on the grass. The residents heeded his call for change.
And the kids.
They immerse themselves in play, totally lost in it, and nothing could inhibit the community's joy.
Wow, it really does flow when you put them all together like that. It turns a vocab list into a story.
And that's the power of mastery. Instead of saying he used his friends, you say he leveraged his connections. Instead of they wanted to use the land, they wanted to exploit it. It paints a much clearer picture.
So let's wrap this up. What is the big takeaway for you listening today?
The takeaway is that words are not isolated islands. You have to stop looking at just the definition and start looking for the bridges, the prepositions, the context.
Don't just learn reconcile. Learn reconcile with someone versus reconcile two ideas. Don't just learn immerse. Learn immerse in something.
Exactly. Notice the environment. That is the only way to go from being understandable to being truly compelling.
I want to leave everyone with a thought about that word yield, because honestly, that was my favorite part of this.
It's a powerful concept.
We spend so much of our lives trying to yield results. to produce, to succeed. But
Yeah.
sometimes to get there, you first have to yield to pressure. You have to compromise. You have to surrender a little ground to move forward.
That's so true. It's the difference between the oak tree and the bamboo. The oak refuses to yield to the wind and it breaks. The bamboo yields, it bends, and it survives.
Be the bamboo. Thanks for listening. Go out there and nurture your vocabulary. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.